At least here in Europe, the price of the Galaxy S25 and Pixel 9 Pro is right now almost the same. They are both the compact lineup of Samsung and Google, but the S25 is actually much lighter and also smaller than the Pixel. One of the main reasons is that the Pixel 9 Pro is using a larger battery with a capacity of 4700 mAh instead of the 4000 mAh on the S25. But that doesn't necessarily translate to better real-life battery life since the S25 has a better processor. On the other hand, the Pixel 9 Pro has a better display. It has the new Samsung display, and the S25 is using the last generation version. Also, the Pixel 9 Pro has better camera hardware. For example, in this shot comparing the S25 to a Pro Sony camera, and the Pixel 9 Pro, the Pixel has better optical quality than the S25. And more, this is Tecmo, and today I'm going to do a day in the life comparison of S25 versus the Pixel 9 Pro to test the battery life, camera, and performance together with Nada. I charged both phones to 100%, set the brightness to the same level using a lux meter, and connected them to the same Wi-Fi and also the same 5G network provider. I then played YouTube on Wi-Fi until my friend Nada arrived from Belgium to visit me. After playing around 2 hours of YouTube on Wi-Fi, the Galaxy S25 was at 86%, while the Pixel 9 Pro was the same. Nada arrived and we went out for lunch. The Pixel 9 Pro selfie shot is wider than that of S25. For indoor pictures, the larger sensor of the Pixel 9 Pro gives more of a blurry background, and the shot is also more optically detailed, but I prefer the processing of the S25. For the ultra-wide shot, they are both doing a decent job. The Pixel 9 Pro is a bit more vivid. The telephoto lens of the S25 is 3 times, and for the Pixel 9 Pro is 5 times. That means for a shot like this, it is a bit too close. To test the camera better, we went outside to take some. This is Nada for reference, and the video is taken by the Sony FX30. I'll include some pictures of Nada from the Sony for comparison to the phones. In this ultra-wide shot, the main difference is color science, where the Galaxy is colder and greener while the Pixel 9 Pro has more magenta. In this shot with ultra-wide lens, the S25 highlights are overblown, and the Pixel did a better job keeping them. The same can be said about the photo with the main lens, where the Pixel again did a better job retaining detail in the sky. I took this one with 5x zoom on both of them. The Pixel is clearly making a better photo here since the S25 has to crop to get to 5x zoom, but at the same time I found the skin tone on the Pixel too red. And here in portrait mode with 3x zoom, the Pixel is doing better again optically, and there is a gray haze on the S25 photo. This video is taken with 5x zoom on the Pixel, and to be frank with you, I'm not a big fan of the skin tone and how vivid everything is. In contrast, even though the video with 3x zoom is not as sharp on the Galaxy S25 and there's a haze, the colors are more natural and pleasing to me. Before we got to the center to do some sightseeing, the Pixel now has 2% more battery compared to the Galaxy. We got into the train, and here on the ultra-wide video, the Pixel is more contrasty while the Galaxy has more lifted shadows, which is characteristic of the phones. We got to the center and went to Nada's favorite cake place, which is called the Cake Tree. And while the cheesecakes were arriving, I played some chess on both phones. The cakes were yummy, and I was thinking of becoming a real influencer, testing cakes and getting paid for it. I also took a picture of this flower nearby to just show you that the Pixel 9 Pro can take macro photos, but the minimum focal distance for the S25 is rather high, so you can't get too close to the subject. By the time we finished eating, the S25 had 76% and the Pixel 9 Pro had 77% battery left. We then went to Prata to take some photos and videos. Our observations stayed the same. The S25 has a green tone, while the Pixel 9 Pro has a magenta one. Here, I took a photo with 5x zoom, and even though in my opinion, the Galaxy S25 tone is closer to the rear camera, Nada preferred the photos on the Pixel 9 Pro. Also, even without portrait mode, the Pixel can still create a nice bokeh with the telephoto lens. In general, the telephoto lens on the Pixel 9 Pro is simply better. It is a larger sensor, larger reach, and better quality overall. But the downside is the larger footprint on the camera housing. Nevertheless, I hope Samsung start to put better telephoto lenses on their smaller phones. We took the metro this time to go to the canal. In this ultra-wide shot, Nada face is a bit more vivid and warmer on the Galaxy compared to the Pixel 9 Pro. Also, in pictures indoors, the Pixel is raising the shadows more and making things more exposed. That also happened on the main lens, and Nada's hair is darker on the Galaxy compared to the Pixel. We went out of the metro and reached the Danube Canal, which is a place with a bunch of cool graffiti and perfect for a street photo shoot. For reference again, this is Nada's skin tone in this overcast lighting on the Sony FX30 cinema camera, which is a fairly accurate color-wise. The Galaxy S25 can take 8K video, and the advantage of 8K video is that you can punch in without losing much of the quality. It can even take 8K log, which is amazing for creators that want to add their own colors. For example, here I tried to change the colors to resemble a Fujifilm camera. But I should say that the 8K video quality coming out of the Pixel 9 Pro is another level. Granted, you have to first upload it to the cloud, and that can take time, and the colors are too vivid for my taste. We started taking photos using both cameras to compare them to each other. It is the same old story. The S25 has greens, the Pixel has magenta. The Pixel has red shadows, while the S25 is more contrasty. But overall, with the main lens, they are both producing nice images. Of course, things get better for the Pixel the moment we start to use the telephoto lens. One cool thing that the Galaxy has going for it though is the new filter system that you can define and get very interesting shots. It was always there, but on OneUI 7 they made it even more modern. For dinner, we went to the jazz club that has very nice programs almost every night. Although these random artsy clubs in Vienna, it gives the town a nice vibe. Also, the Pixel is doing better here. Especially in low light and with the zoom, I always use the 8K cloud mode on the Pixel since it gives the best result among any conventional flagship phone, apart from those crazy Chinese ones like the Vivo X200 Ultra. For pictures, the Pixel is also less noisy, and the motion blur is cursing the S25. For some reason, in low light, the S25 videos also appear a bit soft. I know part of it is because the Pixel is adding a lot of contrast, but I also think it is just the glass and the lens on the S25 that makes this kind of effect. By the time we finished eating and were ready to go home, the Galaxy had 54% and the Pixel had 52% battery left. We went back with the tram this time, and I love how we use 3 different types of public transport to get around the city. It is almost 8 o'clock, but the sun hasn't set yet. When we got home, I took some quote-unquote night photos because, as you noticed, the night comes very late. And I would say that, to my surprise, the Galaxy was able to keep up rather well with the Pixel in these shots. You have probably noticed by now that the Pixel has the better camera system. I often prefer the color science of the Galaxy, but it's hard to argue that it is a better camera in general. What the Galaxy has going for it though is the better chipset. It is using the Snapdragon 8 Elite instead of the Tensor G4, and the fun part is that Samsung is actually making the chipset for Google. The Tensor chipsets are not very powerful. For example, in this Geekbench test, the Pixel 9 Pro got less than half of the score of the S25 in multi-core. They are also not super efficient and tend to heat up. But that doesn't mean that in simple tasks like browsing Chrome, watching content, or just spending time on the phone, you'll notice any lag or performance issues on the Pixel 9 Pro. Both OneUI 7 and Android 15 run smoothly on the Galaxy and Pixel, and there are very different flavors of Android. They both have Circle to Search and other similar services. For example, on both of them, you can hold the power button to ask Gemini anything. The Galaxy AI is more mature in my opinion. For example, I use the Text AI feature almost daily to translate comments on YouTube or to summarize the emails I'm going to send. Maybe write down in the comments what language you speak. To also test the thermals of the phones, I connected them to Google Meet so they could talk to each other. After around 20 minutes, the Pixel 9 Pro was 1 degree hotter, and to be frank, I expected a bit more. By the time the test was finished, the Galaxy was at 39% and the Pixel was at 37%. Clearly, the 700 mAh larger battery didn't help the Pixel last longer. Overall, the Galaxy is more compact. It is lighter, smaller, and easier to handle, with a smaller camera bump. The display is 1 generation behind the Pixels, but it is definitely decent. The chipset is also much better than the Pixels, which helps to achieve the same battery life as the Pixel 9 Pro despite having a smaller footprint. Now imagine the Galaxy S26 with a new battery technology. On the other hand, Pixel 9 Pro has a better camera system, especially on the telephoto side. You get to experience clean Android firsthand. For example, the Android 16 beta is now released for Pixel phones, and you also get a slightly larger screen if that's something you care about. You can also save a bit more money and get the Pixel 9, which is cheaper than both of these phones. If you want to see the comparison of Pixel 9 versus the Galaxy S25, you can watch this video next. Thanks for tuning into Tech Mo, and I will see you in the next one.